Life is so busy. If you blink, you can miss something amazing. It's important to take a moment and enjoy what we have and the people around us. I'm Mo Hagan, Chief Operating Officer for CanFit Pro, and welcome to A Moment with Mo, a podcast where I will welcome some incredible guests to talk fitness and nutrition, mindset and self-empowerment, setting our goals into action, and much, much more. Now let's get chatting. Hello and welcome to A Moment with Mo. I'm your host, Mo Hagan. On our show, we dive deep into meaningful conversations with exceptional leaders. And these exceptional leaders, they drive positive change in the world. So we're blessed to hear their inspiring stories that ignite our passion, our purpose, and of course, inspire us all to make a real difference in the world. Today, we're celebrating International Women's Day with a conversation about how women lift each other up. This year's International Women's Day theme, Give to Gain, deeply resonates with me, and I'm sure it does with you as well. I've been very blessed to be supported during my career, given opportunities to gain experience and invitations to step into leadership roles and rooms, even when I didn't feel ready. And I'm so glad that you're all here with us today. I am honored to be joined by a true leader whose impact has shaped the fitness world in Canada and beyond. And my guest today is Michele Colwell. Together, Michele and I have actually walked a leadership journey pretty much together, and it's been amazing to grow alongside her. Michele is the Executive Vice President of Operations at GoodLife Fitness, one of the nation's most recognized health and wellness organizations. Her career spans 37 years at GoodLife Fitness. Michele started her career at club level, rising through diverse leadership roles, including starting the personal training department back in 1998. And that was pretty epic because it was just the time that personal training as a career was getting underway. Now, along with Michele's journey of leadership, it's been Michele's character that has been most appealing to me as someone that always looks up to female mentors. Her passion for leadership development and driving excellence in service and empowering people to become their best is just three of her many qualities. So without further ado, let's welcome Michele to the show. Hi, my friend.
Hi, Mo. Great to see you.
Great to see you. And I always say that because it is great to see you with the busyness of the world and our new way of working. I'm not as, haven't had as many opportunities to connect with you physically, but it's always great to connect when we do. And one thing I'm going to warn everybody is Michele and I have always so much to talk about. So fasten your seatbelts.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, it could go on for hours.
We can. So again, thank you. I know this theme of International Women's Day is so in alignment with you as a leader, give to gain. And we're going to dive into what this theme means and speak to it as with your experience as a female leader in a very unique male-dominated field and how you really navigated and helped to create that change over the years. We're also going to sort of start with your inspiring journey, share a bit about your story. I'd love to ask you a few questions, but whatever inspires you to take it from the question and go from there, I'm all for. And then we will talk more about the International Women's Day theme for this year. It's not just a day, it's a year. And then, of course, we're going to talk about leadership in a people-centric culture, which you have a lot of experience with. And then we're going to close off with what's next and how we all move forward together.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it. And as you know, I'm very passionate about everyone excelling, in particular women. As you know, I've led a lot of women, and I don't know, it's just a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
My pleasure. And the pleasure is for all those listening here. So we're really glad to have you along. All right, let's dive into your story a bit and your journey, Michele. My first question is, we've recognized you've been in the industry for over 3 decades, from floor manager to executive leadership. Tell us about the early experiences or people that helped to shape your leadership style and perspective on serving others. And how did those influences or those experience influence the way you lead today?
So that was about 1988, and I was in human kinetics, and I was extremely shy. And so I had a lot to work through. But I would say there was 4 leaders in my life, especially in the early years, that impacted my leadership style. It might sound different, but within 6 months of my first true leadership role as a general manager, after I'd worked in the club for years, about 6 months in, it was clear to me that my mother was actually the one who instilled a lot of my leadership skills today. And I would say in particular, she taught me to serve, to love serving others, to be present. And, there's a coin phrase that goes around in leadership books today: connect before you collect. But my 85-year-old mother years ago taught me that to make sure that you connect with people eye to eye, heart to heart, and really listen to them and try to connect to them where they're at with empathy, but also honesty. And so I have to say she was somebody that impacted me and still does today. 2 of my leaders at work, as you know, the owner of GoodLife Fitness and founder David Patchell-Evans, and Jane Riddell, were key leaders in my life. And I truly learned key, like just some simple things that I carried my whole life. One from Jane Riddell was make sure you have passion, but with purpose. And so you don't want to just spread your passion. You want to be really thoughtful with how you act, what you're communicating. And with David Patchell-Evans, he really helped us to learn how to work really hard and have fun at the same time and focus on your strengths. And I would say, interestingly enough, my first manager was a lovely person outside of work, but really struggled with their style under stress. So I learned a lot about style under stress and how important it was as a leader. And so I have to humbly say that I fail sometimes with my style under stress, but it really taught me what I shouldn't do at work, or how far you should go with your stress and how you need to manage that. And so those are just 4 people. I know that's a lot, but they were really impactful for my whole life. Just I've carried a lot of that with me.
Brilliant. And one great example of this year's International Women's Day theme, Give to Get, lifting others up. And you just did that, lifting up the strengths of those that have inspired you, both women and men. And that's a great example. If you really want to soar, it's aligning yourself with people that truly care about you to help mentor you and give you those incredible, not just career lessons, but life lessons, which you just shared. And I love it how the first and one of the greatest influences in your life is still your mom today. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm going to thank you too, but you don't realize this, but you and I have been knowing each other now for 37 years. And we've been around so long. There was no computers. I used to call you, and because you're a physiotherapist, and I'd be like, Maureen Hagen, I don't know how to repair a torn rotator cuff. And I would just reach out to anyone just for help. And I remember you just giving yourself to me. You would fax me photos so I wouldn't hurt anyone. I would learn. And you were definitely part of my learning and my exercise library back then. You served me also you're just sure every time. So thank you.
Aw. Well, and to your point about make sure your passion is aligned with purpose, you helped me, share my passion with purpose as a physio, even when I wasn't in the role as a physio, by reaching out. So, reach out. That's the one thing women also, and everyone needs to do, but reaching out and asking for advice and help, and knowing that it doesn't make you it should not make you feel small. It should make you feel courageous, and that you grow when you actually learn from each other, especially those that you know and trust that have your best interests in mind, therefore will help you unconditionally. Yeah, that's really cool. I have a follow-up question about, again, your journey. It let's say it for what it is. It's been the fitness industry, and personal training specifically has been seen as a male-dominated industry. I'd love to hear what challenges or changes you encountered, particularly as a woman in leadership.
It's interesting because I would say the first 15 to 20 years, I was not negatively impacted, probably like yourself. And working at GoodLife was so unique because the founder, David Patchell-Evans, really gave women a say, encouraged, supported. As you know, David Patchell-Evans' mother worked for us till she was 102, Dorothy. And so my first 15 to 20 years, maybe, because it is my 38th year, I think I was shielded from it a bit. It wasn't until I got into the world a little bit. We acquired different companies. I was connected to different companies throughout the world that I started to really feel it. And I remember attending a conference in Denver, Colorado. There was 200, I would say, personal and training directors at the time. And there were several speakers at a conference speaking every 20 minutes for 2.5 days. When I went to that conference, I was there was probably 2 out of 200 leaders there that were women. And there was only one female speaker at the entire conference. And so I was kind of like hit with it that way. So in personal training in particular, I find that has been very male dominated. And it continues to actually be because of who we recruit, who kind of takes on that job. So I would say overall, I didn't have a lot of negative experiences that way, but I have had some. In fact, one of my stories is a friend of mine overheard someone talking about me saying that I shouldn't be promoted again because I was a single mom. So I have had some descriptions. They don't work with this anymore. But I think I know what it feels like to be looked at different for that. Maybe been talked over sometimes. Because traditionally in this role, it was very male dominated. So I'm happy to say there's a lot of women joining the field. What I'd like to see more of, though, is more becoming leaders and finding a way because they're just so wonderful for customers. Also, they have what it takes. And I still think there's work to be done, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for sharing, because you've had both experiences where you were shielded from that huge gender discrepancy, but then you came into that realization as you got out into the industry further, which I would imagine was not only eye-opening, but a good experience for you upon navigating your current, your journey. Did that experience and experiences like that change the way in which you shaped yourself as a leader or put yourself forward? Can you share?
Yeah, it's interesting because as you know, it's been 38 years. I've led many males and females and strong personalities, both. And a few times I felt like the male did not want a female. And I really try not to tell myself that story, right? Because I do believe at the end of the day, it's the person, not necessarily the gender. And so I did create strategies when I felt like I was in that situation. Like, how am I showing up? Am I showing up small? Am I showing up clear? Am I trying to match the person a little bit so they understand me better? And so instead of like going into like blaming, honestly, I really tried to strategize with people to overcome those situations. That's
great.
what I did.
That's awesome. I love that. It's kind of like putting your own oxygen mask on before you help others. You did self-reflection to really understand how you show up and how you could show up, not because as a woman, but showing up as a authentically strong leader so others would respect and therefore follow, and learn from you. So that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that.
It's interesting too. I don't know if you feel like this because we've both been around for a bit on this earth.
A bit.
I don't know, but I remember thinking, wow, as a woman, you often wanted people to guess how you felt. You thought that they should notice your strengths, but the world doesn't really work that way. You really have to take it upon yourself and self-advocate with intelligence. And people have grown up in so many different situations, so they see people, genders differently, and it's like taking each person at a time and figuring out how to strategize that.
And lead with strengths and know your strengths. Very good point. In my introduction, I said, I was blessed to be invited into rooms when and roles, even when I didn't feel ready. And you and I both know, I think we both got the first VP roles in the company, and I'm like, a VP? I had one day of business school. What the heck am I doing? However, that being said, we obviously knew where our strengths laid and do lie. And we relied on those strengths to navigate the path forward. And of course, we had great mentorship and leadership. And another lesson, everyone, is sometimes, others identify strengths in you before you do for yourself. And you got to trust that. And one thing I will always, and I'd love your opinion on this, is as a female, whenever we're given a leadership, especially when it comes to a strength or a leadership quality compliment, we tend to be the first to say, oh, no. Oh, or apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I come across too bossy? No, it's leadership. And have you heard that? Is there some thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember thinking about that several times. It really helped when we all learned about being assertive versus passive aggressive. And that way people couldn't accuse you of being aggressive or passive. It was really fine tuning how you communicate so you wouldn't come off aggressive to people. You just came off factual, non-emotional, not emotionally attached to everything. And so there was times where I felt maybe misjudged too by the way I communicated because I was a female.
Love it.
There's times when I didn't feel like, because I think I was taught to be very caring, to not hide my emotions. I was taught very early to be very comfortable sharing, but people that haven't, and if it's a male that hasn't, can be very uncomfortable with it. But I had to learn it's not wrong that I can share emotions. It's how I do it. I need to be effective and know who's in front of me, so I'm serving that person in the conversation well.
What a gem. We're here with Michele Colwell, and we're talking everything as it relates to women in leadership. And this year is International Women's Day. We are celebrating the theme of give to gain. Let's talk about that a bit more. This year's theme for International Women's Day is give to gain, embracing equity. And it's all about creating space, support, and opportunity so others can rise with you, with us. What does this theme mean to you personally, Michele, as a woman in senior leadership? And have you seen equity in action, whether it's in the club culture, leadership teams, or community? How have you seen that equity piece make a difference?
Well, first of all, the give to gain. I truly believe that if you do give, you'll gain, and everyone else will gain. I feel like my personal responsibility is to give in this area. And I believe it's around opportunities, especially early opportunities for young girls, teens. In the summer, I teamed up with a lovely organization, Fit and Fierce, I think out of Edmonton. And it's all about supporting young teens to become, mentally strong, mentally healthy, physically strong, physically healthy, and getting them into the health clubs so they feel comfortable. And then hopefully they'll work in the health clubs and be leaders in the health clubs. So I think the give to gain is a lot about opportunities. So more women feel confident and have the skill. Like, to me, it's about giving opportunities to skill. So what can I do? Can I financially support a company? Can I sponsor some women? So I think that's my responsibility, Mo. And in my role, my responsibility is to make sure those opportunities are there. As far as equity, I think I know personally at GoodLife, we really are looking at like our recruiting process. Like, is that equal? Making sure development between genders is fair and everybody is heard and seen and met with, and they have every opportunity. So they have an equal opportunity. I still think there's a lot of work to be done, Mo, in this area. But I've seen some positive changes. I've seen higher accountability. I think education and spending time in education and learning out what's really going on too is something that we've improved on, but needs to keep continuing.
Fantastic. Intention precedes impact, right? Yeah. And we all do. It's a continual learning journey. We never stop learning. That's why we're both associated with great organizations. You mentioned Fit and Fierce. I interviewed Kelsey Vickers and her colleague not long ago on this show from Fit and Fierce, a wonderful organization. Feel free to go back to that episode and have a listen. But also, we're both associated with great organizations like CanFit Pro, which is an education company. And it is always learning to grow, especially in a dynamic, ever-changing, faster than ever world today, especially around this area of leadership. Well, you brought it up as far as your passion around working with young girls and raising young girls to be leaders and strong and confident individuals. You are a mother raising a young teenage daughter in today's very fast-paced and changing world. What personal lessons or values are most important for you to instill in your daughter?
I probably try to instill too many. She is 15, so I have to watch my advice. But, you know, my daughter can come off like an extrovert, but she's an introvert, which I just learned recently, right? So one of the things that I'm really trying to teach with her is self-love and self-advocacy, but with wisdom, because you need to use intelligence when you're trying to advocate for yourself. So I'm really trying to help her value, first of all, self-love, I have to say, comes first, Mo, because when we learn to truly love and accept ourselves, our confidence will shine. We will try new things. We won't have bad boundaries or poor boundaries. And so I have to say it is self-love. It's self-advocacy with intelligence, though, right? You don't want to walk and talk to someone that's treating you unfairly like a fire hose where you're just emotionally spraying whatever your feelings are. Like, I'm really trying to teach her to understand herself. What does she really want? How can she communicate that? I think healthy boundaries are a very good value and bravery these days. And obviously, with young girls, it's like you really have to watch what's going on and pay attention and pause. I know everybody's probably tired of hearing about social media, Mo, but it is a real thing, raising a teenager with so many broken messages coming at her and her friends. And so as a leader, as a mom, I need to be thoughtful about how she spends her time, where she spends her time, the messages that she's learning, because they're all going to affect how she leads herself. And so I'm going to share, I guess, when she was 12, I was a little taken back on how fast girls change and want to become independent, and how all of a sudden they see and hear different things they never did before. And I was a little off with my timing. I thought it happened more like a 13, 14. But as the leader of a female teenager, I really have to set an example and make sure my technology is under control, what I watch, what I do, my extracurricular activities. I had to show her things like, we have to give to people. Let's go volunteer. Like, you have to show women, not just tell women what's going to make them truly happy. And I think I'll just end with, I don't want teenagers to be depressed. And I think they're often depressed because they don't know their purpose and they don't know their value, and they need help and direction and guidance. I know there's a lot in
Wow. That
there's
if
a
my
lot.
mic could lift off the desk, I would drop that as a mic drop moment. I think that, well, thank you for sharing that. It's a brilliant moment and experience that really demonstrates, well, shares your parenting journey, but also how you guided your daughter and your by your own leadership through that time. And that's a very, very, generous piece of advice other parents can also incorporate. Social media, and I loved what you said. Instead of putting the boundaries and the controls on them, you actually put it into practice yourself and found alternative ways to actually engage with the world through things like volunteering and not just scrolling.
Yeah, because it truly, like, the thing is, it takes us to lead them. And I don't know if we have time, but I'm just going to share too. Like, we're trying to get to the root of this, right? With women, right? And
Yeah.
the fitness industry in particular, you and I are talking about today. And it starts so young, right? Like at my daughter's school, there's not even enough girls to make a basketball team, like this many years later. And I know it's very successful in other schools, but there's still something going on where us women have to get together and move, us women have to get together and volunteer. We have to monitor the social media. We have to work. We have to play with them, even when they're teenagers. If we really want them to have good boundaries and strong values and really self-advocate for themselves, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but I'm sure you find it rewarding at the same time when you see these gains that are made, both in how your daughter uh, makes decisions now and chooses her course forward, which is exactly part of what the International Women's Day theme is about. And it has to feel rewarding, which makes it feel makes the work feel less like work, but more like
Okay. I'm just
purpose.
being silly. You have to keep humor in all this. And
That's what I love about you. I love about you is that you say it how it is, but then you also find, you find the authenticity in it, but you find the moment where you can't take yourself too seriously, especially as reflect, so you can still focus on where, your purpose lies, and that is to be an excellent role model for young girls and all leaders, all women at all levels and stages of their life journey. Yeah. All right. Well, my question here is about young women and young women entering careers, aspiring to grow their influence, take on strategic roles, one day lead at the highest level, whether it is within the fitness industry, corporate world, or community. What advice would you give to women aiming for the C-suite or executive track, especially in spaces that haven't always been invited or nurtured for women leaders?
they need to first get crystal clear on what they want and why they want it. If it's just like about money or whatever, it's going to be a completely different road than if they find their passion. So when you want to become an executive, it's great to have that as a goal, but you have to get your work done. And what I mean by that is you need to get crystal clear on what you're doing, why you're doing it. And then you have to have skill. So you have to spend, some good time working on your strengths so that you can bring value to an organization. So that's what organizations are looking for. They're looking for emotionally healthy people that are working on themselves. They work hard, they serve others. Their focus is on helping a company achieve what it needs to be in the vision, and not so much self-focus. It's interesting that if you know each step of the way, what you have to do, what skill you need, you will get there. You will get there. And so I think my biggest advice is make sure you take care of your emotional world, your physical world, and make sure you know your strengths and really work with your strengths and enjoy that work. because when you become an executive, you become a bigger servant, not a smaller servant. You don't serve less, you actually serve greater. The pressure can be higher. The rewards can also be greater, as you know, Mo. So, and then, get help from people and talk to people and get advice and take that advice on.
And then don't go alone.
Yeah. If you're going into a world, though, where it's more dominated by men, that's why you have to have the skill. Like you have to be in an opportunity to have the skill, because then you can be factual about your skill. And I also want to say you need to work really hard on your communications. And I'm still doing that at 59. Our world is on the computer. It's a whole new way to communicate at a distance. And so there's so many good tips out there now. There's so much help that I believe that if a woman really wants to do it, she just needs to, like I said, make sure she has the skill, learn how to communicate, and communicate in a way that's going to work with that person that's in front of them.
Yeah.
And don't expect people to read your mind. Like you have to, for years you can go, oh, my boss should notice this, or I should notice this. Well, it doesn't. It's actually our job to get them to notice in a humble way, in an articulate way. But you really are taking on that influence yourself.
Very good point. You made so many great points, starting with what you want, knowing your purpose, getting crystal clear on that, building your skill set. It's so important, especially, as a woman in a male dominated industry or career. And then understanding the role of servant and servant leadership. Those are all great. And of course, it's just really knowing yourself and advocating. And that's one of the, I was at another women's leadership event on the weekend, and this professor at Western shared with young high school students that the fact remains the same today, that the majority of women who are aspiring for leadership roles wait to be invited and wait until they have all the skills and confidence. But you have to know yourself and advocate for your strengths and for what it is you want, but also have those skills to back up your yourself, so that you have that confidence. Yeah. Very, very fantastic pieces of advice. As you know, we're here with Michele Colwell, and if you're listening and wondering how to take the next step forward in your leadership journey, I invite you to reflect on the question I'm going to ask Michele. Can you share a time in your career when a leader supported you, or a moment when you supported another woman in her professional journey? What impact did that experience have on you or your colleague?
Probably many. I mean, it's probably not a secret, not to you anyway, but obviously when I was young and growing and learning and developing my skills, I would actually have to say it probably was David Patchell Evans and Jane that saw more in me than maybe even I saw in myself. And it was the encouraging words, not nitpicking on little things about me, just really trying to get me to focus on what I was strong at and, celebrating that and encouraging me. But as you know, I've had several women that I've hired and probably developed and trained. It's kind of my passion. I remember so many stories, Mo. Like I can think of someone who was very shy like me, who was a very hard worker, and they were being interviewed for a divisional manager job. And they were against 5 other people. There was 1 female and 3 other males. And I was the only one to pick this particular female. And everybody disagreed with me. At the time, because I was the director of personal training, I was able to overrule everyone, which I didn't typically do, but I did in this time. And the person that was hired listened to all the advice I gave. I shadowed them. I helped them public speak, things like that. And then, to be honest with you, they moved on to another company and became a vice president. And so there was a lot of things like that, like just really seeing people where they were at and being really honest with feedback. but loving at the same time. People who really want to do well, like that there's many stories like that where people flourished.
Wow. That's a great one.
And
That's a
I've
great
had a
one.
few where there's people working with me, unfortunately, that they were not being treated well in their homes. And they learned to lead themselves where they found safer places. And I do have to say, I've been beyond blessed by the women in my life through my journey, lifting me up equally, not just me doing that. It's actually shocking when I look back how many people, and as you know, there's 2 people that work with me today that I both hired them 2 different spots 32 years ago, that we do our birthdays and Christmas too with.
Oh, wow.
Every year.
Oh,
yeah. So when you pour in, people pour back, and just lift each other up. But yeah, lots of stories. If you just take the time to listen to people and you're just there for them, I just think, and you're honest too. Like when I look back, I think it was because I was caring, even though, but I was truthful.
Yeah. And that's caring, being truthful. Yeah, that's beautiful. We're going to talk very briefly about people in, leadership in centered cultures. I do have a couple more questions for you, but I'm just going to summarize it by saying, of course, GoodLife Fitness has been recognized, I don't know how many years and decades, as one of Canada's top best workplace cultures. The question I'm going to jump to, because I think this one would really be most practical, is in your time being 37 plus years at GoodLife, if you had to choose one quality or practice that truly sets an exceptional workplace culture apart, especially when it comes to supporting and advancing women in leadership, what would it be, and why do you believe it makes the biggest difference?
It's really hard to pick one.
I know. The one. Come on.
The word that's been floating around a lot. It's like, I think it starts with the psychological, like making people feel safe psychologically, right? Like connecting to be themselves. And I believe with women, they really need to feel like they are in a safe spot to say who they are, where they're at, what their needs and goals are. There's all kinds of other things, but people need to feel safe psychologically, not just physically. Like people need to feel safe that way. But at work, you need to create an environment where people are honest, feel safe to speak their mind, and everybody's way more effective that way. Because you just kind of get to the root of what people need, and you can talk honestly about, work, the requirements. I don't know. That's just something that's always resonated with me. It's like, try to make it safe for people. So they tell you the truth. You can support them. They can do their job better. That makes sense.
That's brilliant. And it's leadership being way beyond just achieving goals. Really, it's about opening that door for psychological safety. It does amplify everything else, right? It welcomes diverse voices. It helps everyone be true to themselves in a workplace that allow them to rise with each other. That's perfectly stated. Again, go ahead.
All the studies just talk about all the wasted time on gossip and like being hurt and stuff. And it's like, really, if we just made it safe to listen to each other, we'd probably solve things a lot quicker. We'd be happier and we would get back to work. And I just always appreciated the leaders in my life that when I had a problem or I needed something, that they just gave me a minute to listen and say how I was really feeling. And I was corrected sometimes. And sometimes I wasn't. But being heard in a safe spot and not being judged. Guided is fine. Judged is a different thing. Unless you're doing something that, is not great. But
I was just going to ask you, what's the one thing you hope that our listeners take away from our conversation today? And also as it aligns with this year's International Women's Day theme, and to take from what they've learned and act on, what would be the one thing? You just gave us the one thing, but what would be another one thing?
Oh, my passion is that, we didn't talk about this at all, but one of my passions too is that women would just know that they deserve to be heard and they belong in the clubs and they deserve to use the workout areas like everyone else. And that's one thing, Mo, I just have to share today is that I'm really advocating women strength training, using the club, having their space. Also, I hope everybody feels like they have a voice, that they want to do it effectively so people truly listen to them. So I'm trying to work on my skills for communicating. It would be great if everybody could do that also. And maybe help you and I figure out how to give women more opportunities, girls, so they turn into women that have opportunities, that advocate for themselves effectively. Join us in trying to help. So next week when I meet you, I hope that you and I can solve one or two things to help more women in Canada.
Fantastic. That is amazing. It's an invitation to all. And, everyone can contribute because we still, as you said, we have a lot of work to do. But a part of this whole theme is lifting each other up and lifting others up, giving to gain. And so it isn't just yourself walking on this path, finding your way. And that's what women are also best known for. A great example I was given a couple of years ago by a fantastic leader in the industry was a great example of a female leader in this world is how they act when they go to a nightclub. What do you do when you're a woman in a nightclub and you go up and the line's long and you want to get in and you convince the bouncer to let you in for whatever reason, you know them or you dress the part or whatever. And what's the thing that the woman does? They go get their girlfriends and lift the rope and bring them all in with them. And that's not necessarily what you'd see others do when they get in those lineups. But you really reminded us, Michele, that leadership is about lifting others up. But in order to do that, we need to know who we are as leaders in the making, because we're always learning and always growing. And I don't think there's ever a finish line to that, which is also rewarding. Imagine if we already learned everything, Michele, where we'd be today. But I want to thank you for your insights and all your incredible, inspiring stories that really help us think about this subject of International Women's Day, and that is giving to gain, lifting others up, and how it really helps to serve the world, solve a lot of the inequity issues that we still face. But you know what? As long as we keep moving forward, and we need each and every one of you to help us do that. So as we close off today, I just want to invite you, as you reflect on today's conversation, if you found value in it, I know I did. I took a lot of notes and my heart feels very full, as it always does when I connect with you, Michele, because again, you lead with heart. If you found this helpful, then here's our invitation, is to share it with someone else who inspires you. And if you're still looking for connection and opportunities for growth and mentorship, then feel free to visit my website for free resources. Happy to help wherever I can. And please remember, friends, the greatest impact happens when we give to others so that we gain, and making those moments that matter meaningful in all ways. Thank you, Michele. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mom.
And until next time, be amazing.